Hey guys, we're back up on Mille Lacs. As you can see, it's a little colder than it was down on Logan Martin. I've had to get out the Stormer Striker suit. We're getting down in the 20s at night. So anyways, we just wrapped up the last regular season Bassmaster Open on Logan Martin, and I fished it differently than I have in the past 2 years. The past 2 years I've had really good practices, or I should say year and a half. I only fished 3 elite events last year before my son was born, but either way, that 2016 season had really good practices, and my tournaments weren't that great. So I decided I only practiced one day on Logan Martin, and I pretty much stayed behind the Lowrances the whole time. I mean, I might have fished 45 minutes an hour or something like that, but I knew it was probably going to be a dock tournament, so I really just idled and side scanned a lot of docks. What I was looking for before I would side scan them was any lights on the docks, rod holders, cables, or anything that could be holding brush suspended under the dock, and then I'd side scan it and confirm what was under there. And during the actual tournament, I fished a lot of stuff that I didn't even look at in practice. I'd just be going from one spot to another, and I caught some key fish just having a gut feeling, hey, this certain laydown or this dock with a laydown next to it, a fish lives there. That's prime habitat, and I'd stop, and I caught some key fish like that. But anyways, getting into it, the little that I did fish during practice, I threw this dirty jigs pitching jig, and I fished during practice. I fished a little dirtier water than I did actually during the tournament, and so I just threw a black and blue with the big crazy flapper by Kitech on there, and that's a 5/8 ounce jig. So pretty much just a reaction bite. You're skipping it as fast as you can in practice, just hitting as many targets to try to get some key bites. Shook pretty much everything off. Did have one big one that I wish I wouldn't have hooked. Probably would have jumped me up from 16th into well into the top 12 if I could have caught that one during the tournament. And a lot of these dock fish are resident fish, so it is important to not hardly hook anything at all in practice. Anyways, threw this during the tournament also on a 7.4 heavy Muse Black with an 8:1 gear ratio left-handed reel, Concept A, 20-pound Seagar. And then, okay, getting into the tournament here, this is what I started out with. I've been throwing this one on Mille Lacs, and I'm trying to imitate a perch. So I'm actually throwing a gold blade and a perch colored swim bait. That's a 3.3 Kitech that I used on several baits as well. During the tournament, I had a green pumpkin on for the trailer and a black blade because I was seeing a lot of bluegill under the docks, and that's what I wanted to imitate. And I was just skipping this thing as far as I possibly could back under the docks. The way I bend this wire, it does a couple things for me. One thing, it kind of changes the position of this blade, and I think it just helps it skip a little better. The other thing it does is I can tune that to where it will track true. People say they like buzz baits to run off to the left or run to the right. I don't. I want it to track true, and with my rod tip, I will cause it to bang into dock pilings or stick ups or anything coming out of the water. But on just a cast and retrieve, I want it to run true. Anyways, that put a lot of fish in the boat for me on day 1 and 2. On day 1, I stuck with it up until probably about 11 o'clock. That's on a 7.3 medium heavy Muse Black, Concept E 7.3-1, and 20-pound Seagar. Pretty much everything was on 20-pound Seagar except for a crankbait I'm going to show you guys in a little bit. When I skip this way back under the docks, this is the only technique that I use a 7.3 gear ratio with, and that's because in open water you can raise the rod tip and get that buzzbait up on top of the surface a little quicker. I can't do that when I skip it under a dock that's like 4 inches above the water, so I have to have a little quicker gear ratio to get it up on top. Alright, the other moving baits, dirty jigs, swim jig, put some fish in the boat for me. That's a 3/8 ounce. I really like the 3/8 ounce. It's heavy enough that I can send it way under the docks, and it's light enough I can fish it up by the surface. During the first part of the day, on both days, the fish were more suspended right underneath the floats and just right underneath the docks next to the dock pilings. So again, that 3.3 Kitech That's a swing impact fat. Concept A, 20 pound again, 7.3 medium heavy. That rod is a workhorse for me. I use a 7.3 medium heavy probably more than any other rod in my boat, especially if I'm power fishing. In between docks, this is the Envy 610 cranking rod, the little balsa crankbait there. I had 15 pound test Seaguar fluorocarbon on this one. That's a phenomenal crankbait rod right there. It's the 610. I generally go with the 7, but I can get it. I wasn't so much skipping this. I fished it along the back side of docks and under walkways and on laydowns and rocks. But that 610, you can really get some pinpoint accuracy. And my treble hooks, very important upgrade here to that bait. Hayabusa treble hooks, they have the non-reflective black coating, just no friction whatsoever. They're so smooth. You know, once you feel one of these, other hooks kind of feel almost pitted. That's just a phenomenal hook. I change out all my treble hook baits with those Hayabusas. Also in between docks, the Whopper Plopper 90 in the powder color. This is 7.2 medium heavy moderate Muse black, and I used 40 pound braid to a 20 pound fluorocarbon leader, both Seaguar. That put a key fish in the boat for me on day one. I would have had significantly less weight had I not caught that fish, and it was just on some brush that was sticking up in the middle of docks. Again, just gut feeling. Instead of just hitting docks that look good, I'd hit anything in between as well, and I wanted to move really fast, so that's why I was using the moving baits in between docks. Alright, these last two, other than the buzz bait and the one fish on the Whopper Plopper, I might have been able to just put these two baits in my hand and done as well as I did. This is a Dirty Jigs compact pitching jig in a 1/2 ounce with the Kitech Crazy Flapper. That's a small one. Both green pumpkin. 7 for almost all my jig skipping and pitching, or anytime I'm fishing a jig, unless it's a real finesse jig, I'm throwing a 7.4 heavy Muse black, Concept A, 8-1-1, and after the fish stopped suspending under the docks and they got tighter to the bottom, that's when that jig right there came into play. And then I culled more fish with this bait than anything else I threw. This is the Zoom Magnum Trick Worm, and that head that it's on right there is a head that's poured by my traveling partner Brad Watley, and he was leading the points going into this. If you don't know who Brad is, you're about to. He's for sure going to qualify for the elites. He's probably going to win Angler of the Year, and he's going to tear it up on the Elite Series. Anyways, that's a head that he pours, a stand-up, you know, Magnum shaky head. I usually throw this on 15 pound test, but I was throwing it on 20 because I was, you know, skipping it under docks, and I threw it on a 7.3 medium heavy, and the reason being, a jig or even the buzz bait is a lot easier to skip than any type of worm. So the 7.3 medium heavy, with the same gear ratio reel as my jigs, you know, Concept A, I can, this rod will load up a little better. It has a little more moderate tip. I don't want to say moderate, but it has more tip to it, that on that backswing of your roll cast, it loads up and it'll just send this way up under the docks. He has a flaw in his mold that causes, and he calls it a flaw, but I like it. It causes this jig head, whenever you're pulling it across the bottom, the hook actually moves in that jig head. And I think that's a little secondary action that got me some more bites. Again, it was just I mean, it was great to finish in the top 20 at the end of the year going into 2019. There's a lot of changes being made in the fishing industry, I'm sure you guys know about. I'm making some changes as well. It's been a couple years since you guys have seen me wearing the amphibious sunglasses, and that was a key to finding fish too, because anytime I could see fish under the dock, or especially bluegill, where I would see bluegill suspended up high, that's where I'd really catch the bigger fish. So anyways, I'm happy to be with with Amphibia again. There's going to be some other sponsors I add for this coming year. I'm going to be fishing a tour that you guys haven't previously seen me fish in the past. So it's going to be a good year, I think, and it's just I'm looking forward to the future. It's a lot of good changes that are really good for the industry, and I just want to thank all my sponsors and fans and friends and everybody who stood behind me these last few years. So anyways, I'll have some tips and tricks and everything coming out for you going into the future, so be sure to stay updated on jbrainardfishing.com or at jbrainardbass on any of my social media, and we'll see you in 2019.